Hey folks, it's Bob Harrison. Welcome to the Pop Culture SquadCast. It's not exactly live. This is a recorded episode of the SquadCast. We are back with another episode of our Creators Across the World special episodes. And tonight we have a great guest that we've recorded a couple of weeks ago. This is Torunn Grønbekk. She's amazing. I really enjoy her work. She's very, very eloquent, and we just love having her perspective on things. We talked a lot about her process and her history and what she looks for in the medium and her love for the medium. This is all what we want to talk about. We want you guys to be able to get a sense of the creators that we have on the show, people who love comics. We want people to be exposed to this amazing medium and what goes into the making of it. That's basically what we're here for. So I hope you enjoy this. We're going to get to it in just a second, but I also want to stop and just take a second and remind everybody to subscribe and follow wherever you're watching this, and wherever you find social media, wherever you use your social media. We are available on pretty much every platform. And if you look for Pop Culture Squad, that's us. It helps us to be able to continue doing this. We're not a huge monetizing arm, but we, do want you to be able to continue to move the algorithm so that things will show up in your feed and you can see when we're posting articles on popculturesquad.com, or whether we have podcasts, or if we're out at a convention and we do little quick hit videos and interviews, you'll be able to find them there. So again, it's Pop Culture Squad, one word. Wherever you use your social media, you'll find us there. And again, we're really excited to talk to Torunn. I don't think I mentioned earlier, but she lives in Europe, in northern Europe. I think we can say she lives in Norway, and that's why we did these Creators Across the World episodes that are a little bit different than others, because we want to get everybody's perspective. We want you to hear the voices of people who aren't necessarily in the Eastern to Pacific time zone, and this allows us to do that. So we hope you enjoy this SquadCast. Remember, read more comics. They're good for you. And please enjoy this great conversation that we had with Torunn Grønbekk. Hi, Torunn. Welcome to the SquadCast.
Thank you so much. That was interesting to see all of my books sort of run through like that.
Yeah. What do you think? What does that do for you?
No, it was fun. I forgot about a couple of them.
Good.
It was fun when you meet people at cons and they're like, this is my favorite book of all time. I'm like, I kind of remember it.
I did that. That was about 3 weeks of my life, and I got paid for it.
Well, the thing is, usually, that's the thing about being a writer. You sort of, first of all, you trick yourself into thinking that it means something profound, right? Which I always love, and I keep doing it because I think about, I used to work in tech and do a bunch of design work and everything, and it felt so meaningless. But now I write comics, and it means something. So, if I spent 3 weeks, writing a book, it was a very meaningful thing for me. I spend more time on it than I should. But sometimes, you forget, the character that you made that was very important for you 5 years ago, and suddenly it's just that was.
Well, I think that's part of the process. I think that's part of the evolution. But you mentioned a couple of things that I kind of want to come back to. But let's talk a little bit about your origin story, just for that. What you said, you were in tech and you did design work. And I know you're a trained design artist. What attracted you to comics, and to writing?
Well, the thing is, I feel like I've told this story many times before. So it feels a little stale somehow,
Well,
because
you
I
don't have,
have like,
you don't have to tell the whole thing. Just
it was a very specific moment, because I remember I always knew I wanted to be a writer, and I think it's like my background is a very sort of geeky, nerdy something. I started coding when I was very young. I got a Commodore 64 when I was like 7. That's how I taught myself to speak English, because I was just like, I don't know how to work this thing, so I need to understand English to sort of make it work, and then so that's sort of been my life for like all my teenage years. That was sort of what I was doing. I went to computer parties and I was coding things and I made websites and I did like a bunch of nonsense. But comics was always there as a sort of part of the community, as a very nerdy community. And I knew I wanted to be a writer, and I would write like long novels of nonsense. And then I had a moment, a sort of very specific moment. I remember this scene, I remember the book, I remember everything, where I was just like, all I really want, I don't want all of this fucking bullshit that I've been writing here. I want Steve Dillon, like just a reaction panel, like one silent panel of a character reacting. That's what I want. And then I had like, oh yeah, I could just write comics. And then I got a little hyperfixation, and I spent like 48 hours in figuring out how to write comics. And then I wrote Ageless, which is the first of the things you just show there.
Yes, it was. And how was what was that like when you wrote Ageless and it existed?
I don't know. It's an oddly strange thing, because you write something and then it's obviously changed by the artist, and it's such a wonderful thing. And sometimes I think like that would be enough just to do, like I've done pitches that has never gone anywhere with like 11 pages. That means a lot to me, because I wrote a thing and then the artist came in and they did something and they created something completely new, right? So comics feels like home in a sort of strange way. I don't know. It sort of combines all of the things that I love in my favorite medium.
I mean, it's a good answer. It's an answer I kind of expected, because, we've known each other for a few years now, and every time you're at a show that I'm hosting panels at, I make sure that I try and get you on a panel, because it's so much fun, because you have this this exuberance for the medium that kind of shines through when you talk about it, and the community as well. Like it's the whole of it. And you said it feels like home, and very much you can tell that from when someone meets you.
It's a lovely thing to say. Thank you so much. That's what I want, and I do think like the community is a huge part of it, because I've had several times sort of in my life I've stood sort of between the crossroads of like going fine art or going comics. And it's always the people that pushes me to the comic side, because it's just, I mean, they're my people,
Mm-hmm,
they
sure.
Jokes. I don't know. And then it's a sort of, it's an odd thing, because I love art in every form mostly, but I do sometimes, there is a certain pretension that I struggle with. And in comics, you have what I think are like the best contemporary artists in the world. None of them have like a second of pretentiousness about them, because they're just, they need to get shit done.
Yeah.
And it's the most wonderful thing. I don't know. It's the perfect combination of creative people doing their fucking best, while knowing that only like a relative few people will sort of understand and get it, but they will get it.
Yeah, I agree. That's fair. You mentioned something else about doing pitches. How do you approach a work for hire assignment? You've been doing work for Marvel and DC and Dynamite for years now. How do you approach that assignment? Is it lots? Do you just, if someone says, "Hey, why don't you pitch me Catwoman?" Is it lots of research followed by this is what I want to do? How do you do that?
Well, it sort of depends. Usually the editors have some sort of something. Like there's something. Like we'll be like Carnage currently thinks he is a god. What do you want to do with that, right? Or
Sure.
like with Red Sonja, it was a very like I said that if I were to do Red Sonja, I would want to go like back to basics, and they're like, yeah, that's what we want. So I don't know. With Catwoman, we had the sort of the request from DC was to take her out of Gotham for a while. And that's obviously that sparks something. But obviously, I always try to figure out sort of what makes me interested in a character, because I always have some sort of connection to the character if I'm gonna write them, and then so I'll read up on sort of the things that made me love them, and then I try to figure out what makes other people love them, because it aren't usually necessarily the same thing.
Mhm.
And even if I don't necessarily follow the things that I just want to know what other people appreciate about the character that I'm gonna fuck around with. And it seems like it's sort of a part of the process. Obviously it's never flawless. Like the moment something is announced that you've been working on for half a year, then suddenly you have like 9,000 DMs from someone being like, I hope you bring out this part of the and it's always like, wait, there's a dude who is like ridiculously Enchantress is like his
Really?
character.
I don't want to know about. There's things I already don't want to know about it.
Thing is, it was just one of those things where I woke up after she was mentioned in one of the solicitations, and I woke up to like 43 DMs from different people, and I was just like, oh shit, I didn't know that Enchantress had such a active fandom. And it turns out I think it's just one dude with 43 different accounts.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's
just
fair.
yeah.
That is fair.
I don't know. And I asked my editors, like, did we fuck something? Did I miss something? And they're like, oh no, that's just that dude.
That's that guy.
Sure. Yeah, that guy.
We apologize, Enchantress dude, in case you're watching.
Well, I mean, I think we gave him what he wanted to. That was the odd thing. It was just because obviously he wants more Enchantress, right? He just wants her done right. And the fun thing about the manfolk is that very often when they have some sort of hang up on that, they want them to be like they want the same thing with Red Sonja. They have very specific ideas of what they want. And it usually includes like no clothing, a certain amount of sluttiness, while not being, a
whore.
It's a very sort of balance to sort of right, if that's what you want. And I obviously if I'm writing a woman, I want to give her personality and all of that stuff. So what I try to do is to do that while being slutty. I don't know.
All right. Well, talking about personality and giving woman personality, when you're writing Valkyries, how do you say that word?
Valkyries?
Valkyrie, as you say Valkyrie. Because when I was growing up, it was Valkyrie, because that's just how I knew it. But like,
well, I don't know. In Norwegian, it would be Valkyria.
Valkyrie.
So yeah. Okay. I don't know.
Anyway.
When it comes to the English pronunciations of a bunch of things, I just go with whatever the fuck other people say.
Oh, that's fair.
A lot of the times.
Bringing in a new character to the Valkyrie world, who was kind of translating the Tessa Thompson character when you did that. How'd you approach that? Well,
I think that was brilliant fun, really, because you had Jane Foster, who is sort of fundamentally a good person. Mm-hmm. I'm not. So when I was sort of trying to figure out, I think I'm like a mediocre plus person,
Okay.
Like I know what I'm supposed to do, and then I don't necessarily always do it. Sometimes
and Jane always does it.
Yes. Okay. Runa, she's more like it feels. So it was it was a fun thing to bring in the sort of the naughtiness of Runa to the mix of Jane Foster, if you know what I mean. And Jane clearly appreciates it too. Like it's she doesn't lack humor, even if she's a good person. But I was sort of like figuring like I would have Jane do the really good stuff, and then I would have Runa do the really, the bad, that's nonsensical things.
Sure.
And I give her all the good jokes.
Well, I mean, that's good.
Mr. Horton got all the good jokes out of it.
I'm a fan. I have been a fan of Brunhilde, the original Valkyrie, for a very long time, and I was very sad when Jason killed her. So, and I blame Jason for that.
Yeah,
so,
as you should.
But I think she had a really important place in Marvel's pantheon and stuff like that, and I think she did good things. And I think do you think about that as you were kind of bringing this person who, in many ways, is kind of like the heir to that character?
Well, yeah, the thing about Vanilla, I also have a sort of special connection to her, and I feel like there's I don't know. That's one of the things I wish we could somehow.
Well, the thing about Brunhilde was she was never. I don't think she ever got. She was never appreciated. I don't think by writers or in a way, like she kind of always was used as a prop in a lot of ways, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, sadly that's the case a lot of the time when you have like female characters, especially the ones that you can just go, oh well, she's really fucking strong, so is that a personality, is that a thing, but you have a bunch of these side characters that people will use exactly how they need them to be used. I don't necessarily enjoy that approach, and I think it would be. I think we could do more with Valkyries, and I think maybe like if the Love and Thunder movie had gone better, maybe there would have been more room to do something fun with the Valkyries. I still hope there's.
It's unfortunate that you say that, although you're probably right.
Well, I mean, did you see it?
No, I did. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if the movie had done better, then we could have gotten more comics. It's unfair. It's unfortunate that that's a reality.
Yeah, but I mean, I see why it is like that, and I think it's like I think both the movies and the games, for that matter. I think we underestimate the games. I know a bunch of like young readers that get to comics because of like Marvel Rivals and stuff that I don't have time for anymore. Yeah. But it seems like fun.
I'm excited about that, though. I like that. I like that people come and come from other places, and that's the idea. That's the ideal, even.
Yeah, I love that, and I think it's I wonder if they like. I've never talked to Marvel specifically about this, but it's one of those. It would be interesting to have an approach where you just have like both the games and I understand the movies that they do like they're so fucking expensive, right? So there needs to be a whole plan and a roadmap and whatever. But when it comes to the games character, I wonder if it would be possible to sort of sneak a few past in there just to see what kind of effect it could have on the comics. It'd be fun to see.
Yeah,
because at least I know, like I had a bunch of people come up to my table. It happens a lot, especially in Europe, because no one knows what we do in Europe. Every time we do a con in Europe, you get like some very specific readers, and then you have a bunch of people are just like, hey, what do you do? Do you know Taika Waititi? Like it's they don't know what we're doing. But they're very excited if we have the Marvel Rivals characters on the covers in front of us. So that's always like a thing, right?
So the Realm of X, right? I'm sure that will show up having magic there, and she's a big thing in Marvel Rivals.
Oh yeah, and I think she's one of those characters that she has such a widespread appeal. I think she's going to be like, she's one of the evergreen ones, right?
She is, and it's interesting. I love seeing stuff like that. I find it like I love Ileana. I've loved Ileana for decades, and it's just interesting to see other people kind of discover her and become a huge super fan of it. And I don't begrudge. I'm not one of those people who say, well, you're not an original.
Oh, there's a real fan.
No,
you have to mention.
But I do find it entertaining to see people get excited about, because she's got a big giant sword or whatever it is, and I thought, big giant sword is good.
Whatever gets people to read comics, and I do feel like there's a moment right now where you have a bunch of young people who are they're not as enamored with social media as the previous generations was. So you have a bunch of people who are looking for other kinds of medias and like ARGs and other ways of telling stories. And you have people making the worst, like that's not true, like really amateurish sort of YouTube animation, and they're doing super well. And I think like there's something here that's so beautiful and so cool. And it's an interesting thing to see sort of my generation argue about AI and the future and whatever. And then you have people who are making very rudimentary, very simple YouTube animation shows with millions and millions of views and their own little merch line and everything. And I think there's something fun about seeing the newer generation just sort of bypass all our nonsense and get to story, which is what people are looking for.
That's the goal. The goal is to get to story, right? I think you're right about that. I think one of the things about this newest generation is that they're looking for story, and they're not looking for it necessarily in social media. I think they're looking for other avenues, and comics is one of them. Hopefully it'll be great for them. Let's talk about some current stuff. You've been writing Catwoman for 20 issues so far, or almost there.
If you say so.
Listen, you started at 69, so good for you.
Thank you. It was a good time for, again, my generation.
Sure. And so what has that been like, writing Catwoman for you and getting into that head? And then what can you talk about with the future? I mean, like, we're now past KO, so we know stuff's happening.
Well, the first sort of year was her out of Gotham, sort of pursuing a very specific thing, and it was a joy for me. But I know, like, a lot of people missed having like characters they already knew, like, because we had to do a bunch of character work to make that thing. Like when Selena is the only character you recognize, you have to work very hard to make sure people care about all of the other characters, right? So we had a full year of sort of being out there fucking around in the world, and then we had a Venice arc where we sort of reintroduce Karma and Falcone, and we sort of start to slowly get our way back to Gotham, and then now we are back in Gotham. And I think, like, I can feel, and one of the things I really appreciate about DC is that they will let me do almost whatever I want, and they have a certain, they work so hard to make sure that, like, whatever ends up on the page is what me and the artist wants it to be, and I really admire them for that. They're like, they do, like, the editorial adjust. I can't say enough good things about them. So you can sort of see that the genre sort of changes a bit when she comes back to Gotham, and the storytelling changes a bit. And I always try to sort of adjust my storytelling depending on the artist and everything. But even here, like, we've gone from very sort of gritty, very realistic. Like, I've been checking train schedules and having timelines and doing all of that sort of things that you really don't really need to do in Gotham. You can take a bit more of a liberty with realism,
So it matters to you that how long you say it takes her to get from place to place is actually accurate?
Well, I mean, it matters if you're trying to sell it as a realistic thing, right? If you're saying that, like, Selena Kyle, she doesn't have any superpowers, she's just exceptionally competent. I think it matters that, the tech is going to be realistic and that the time frames are going to be realistic. And I think that's important. Having said that,
I think it's important too. I'm glad you do. I don't know that everybody does.
Well, I mean, the thing is, right now I'm writing the coming arc. We're getting some Black Mask action, and you're sort of getting into a little more sort of, if not supernatural, there is a sort of tone there that changes a bit. And even if I still try to make sure that she doesn't pull any sort of magic tricks, because that's not what we're trying to do, right? I'm pushing a bit. And I'm trying to change what the emotional beats are, and there will be some splash pages, which is going to be a nice change of pace for the poor people who has drawn my nonsense. I try to like. I don't think I've ever like Catwoman is the series I've done with the most panels per page, by like a lot.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it comes with the territory of trying to do something very realistic. You're trying to answer all of the questions that the reader might have of like, how did you pull that off? Well, you did this, and this, and you sort of end up with a lot of mechanics on page. And I've been blessed to work with artists who are very good at that. Like they will sort of lean into it and do very interesting storytelling. But I also see like, because like when you're writing a Marvel book, the big emotional finale could be like a one splash page of Thanos, and you'll be like that feels something because everyone knows who he is, hopefully. And that's always been a little like, if you don't know who the big splash page character is, it's not going to mean as much, right?
Sure.
So in the Marvel comics, you do sort of play around with, I think, like intertextuality or whatever the fuck it's called, a lot more than I've done in Catwoman, because you've had none of that at all. It's just been
because you feel like you need to be more specific about telling people what they're seeing, or describing it in, not necessarily, and it's visual arts, it's visual storytelling, so it's not words describing, but you just need to be more specific about what people are seeing instead of letting people's history of knowledge inform.
Yeah. But then again, I do also know that, like, I don't know, like if you know who Black Mask is, that's going to mean more in the coming arc than if you don't know. But you do try to tell you who this character is, but it's still it's going to mean more if you already have a sort of an idea of who he is, I think. But it's something that I think about a lot, and I try to make sure, to the best of my abilities, that like people are going to be, if you pick up one of my books, hopefully you're going to be able to follow along without having to have like the full Marvel universe in the back of your head. You're supposed to be able to just enjoy the story, right? And there are a bunch of ways you can get around the fact that the reader doesn't necessarily know who everyone is. But I think about it a lot, just because, especially when I started writing Marvel, we have in Norway, where I live, we get the trades. We do not get the single issues, which means that like the big events and stuff, that's more of a sort of like, oh, do you want to pick up the event or do you not? Well, like there are a bunch of characters that I weren't necessarily introduced to naturally by just reading my favorite characters growing up. So when I started writing for Marvel, I had a bunch of like, I don't know who this is, because I was never exposed to them. Just, it didn't happen to see them on the stand. Right. Because all I saw was the spines of the trades. Yeah.
That's interesting.
So I tried to think about it. Just tried to think about like what would be fun for me, and I also tried to think about like what would be fun for the 17-year-old coming from Marvel rivals, and they're just like, they love this character and they want more of this character. Like they should be able to have fun with a comic too.
That's cool. It's an interesting concept. I'm thinking about like somebody who reading like Crisis on Infinite Earths and having never, like, one of the fun parts about that was, you saw all the people because you knew who all the people were. But like, if this is your experience, there's all these people in this room. You're like, I don't know who these people are. There's like 100 people here, but I don't know who they are. Right.
Yeah. Actually, I thought about that when the thing that I'm doing now is what if Thor gets the black suit from
Yes.
Are
you going back to what if on Secret Wars, like that where it comes from?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So it's sort of like, instead of Spider-Man going into that room, the fixing machine, the thing, Thor does to get his cape back, because his cape was destroyed at some point before, right? And I was sort of like, how much do we need to show up or to explain about this thing to make this make sense to someone? And the fact is, like, it's sort of quite little, but then again, like you need something, and I don't think we're quite like we haven't done the final lettering draft for that one yet, and I'm not entirely sure how much of the lore, like the Secret Wars lore, we're going to get in there.
Sure.
But there needs to be something, and it's just, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'm really interested to hear what you think about it when it comes out. It's been a fucking joy to write, though.
Oh yeah.
I don't think
Who's drawing it?
Sergio de Villa, who is, I did some pages with, like, he did some pages for me when I was writing Thor, and he loves Thor and the Asgardians more than anyone.
More than anyone?
More than anyone. Okay. And I feel like you can probably test him on that. And from time to time, Sergio will write me an email that just says, like, I love Thor. You should do more Thor. And so I was sort of like, when I heard about this, I was just like, we should get Sergio because he's gonna love it. And then I just sat down and I wrote a bunch of things where I'm like, he's gonna love this. This is gonna be, and I love it. I think it's gonna be super fun. I don't think anyone's gonna learn anything about like life or whatever the fuck, but I can do that other places.
Sure. Let's talk about the fact of your name, right? Just a little bit. I mean, it means loved by Thor, right? Is that correct?
The one who is loved by Thor. So it's obviously because my dad is named Tore, Thor, right. You know? So I'm, the one who's loved by Thor.
Well, and who else should be writing Thor? No one.
I don't know. I feel very strongly that I should be writing Thor. I feel like I have a really great Thor run in me if they would have it. But yeah,
I'm waiting. It will happen, and I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, and I hope so too. I'm very much enjoying Al's as everything I like. I love everything Al writes, so I'm not complaining. It's just it feels like one of those things where when I got Valkyrie, I was talking to my mom, who is like, she was like, she used to drag us to sort of Viking reenactment things when we were kids. Like I grew up, I think I have, like, if you see in my, I'm not sure if you can see it right there, there's a Viking sword. That's my Viking sword from when I was a kid, that I stole from my dad. And we would be in this sort of, we would like sit for a week and make like little bread stuff that we burned on the fire, and then we would live as Vikings and have wild boar, and we would do all of the good stuff, right? And I never thought about that as special in any way. And then like I have 4 siblings who are all named like equally to Norse, whatever. Sure. In Norway, it's not necessarily cool. Like Torunn is not a cool name in Norway. Torunn is sort of, well, I mean, some people tell me like they think it's cool, but like in Norway, if you were going to name a character Torunn in Norway, it would be like a 60-year-old woman who would be knitting. That's like she runs the yarn store. That's Torunn. So I don't know. Like, so it's just sort of fun, and it never occurred to me that people would be like, "Oh, that's a cool name." Like, I don't know.
No, it's a cool name. I like it's a cool name. So I wanted to all right. Let's talk a little bit about, I want to talk about the symbiotes. You've written a lot of symbiotes, and I'm everyone who knows me knows I'm not a huge fan of them. I am but you've written.
So what is it you don't like about them, Bob?
All right. You won't this is my thing.
Okay.
I thought that the concept of the symbiote coming and becoming the black suit, and the suit is not really a suit, but it's a symbiote, I thought that was pretty cool. I also thought that taking it off was pretty cool. When Venom came, I was not enthralled. I'm like, what, this doesn't make any sense. And then I learned later on why it didn't make sense. It's because Todd didn't know there was somebody supposed to be in that when he drew it, which is why it looks the way it does. and everyone loves it because everyone loves the anti-hero. Everyone loves the black villain. Everyone loves that. And it's not my thing. I like the hero. So
I get it.
while it's fair. I mean, like, people love it, and I don't want to yuck anybody's yum. So but tell me why you enjoy writing Venom and Carnage, and now coming back to this What If. What do you like about it?
Well, I mean, first of all, I can see how people can be a little like we had a change of editors at some point. It's like mid Venom and Carnage run,
Okay.
and a new editor. I'm not going to name names because poor people. They're like, what are the rules really? Like, how do they work? Could you do like could a symbiote get through like a tiny hole, but with the physical body of the person still? But how does it? And we're like, I don't just don't overthink it. That's what we're doing here. We're just having fun, and we enjoy I don't know. And I realized like during my little tenure that people have like there are a bunch of different fandoms that enjoy Venom and Carnage for very specific reasons. And as you say, not to like yuck on yums. I think there's there are a bunch of people just enjoy the idea of the body of Venom,
Sure.
and whatever
it looks
you can do.
Cool. I'm not gonna argue.
Yeah, and I at some point I also learned that like when I was writing for the first editor that I did, I realized like it didn't really matter what I had on the pages before and after. I just needed to have like one splash page of like symbiote goo, like especially perfectly like a double splash of a lot of
teeth and black and
a tongue wrapping around, maybe not like it's a whole. It's like that. Then it's fine as long as you have enough sort of
But there's a lot of people who like that. And then, listen, it is a visual medium, and the art is at least 50%, if not more of it. And I love that people enjoy that.
And I was like symbiotes, like they're visually it's sort of stunning. I find the fight scenes are fantastic, and it's an incredibly fun thing to write. But when it came to Venom, like for me, I got the sort of the Dylan part of writing Venom, and Dylan at the time was like, you see, somewhere between like 14 and 17. Like no one like he's like teenage something. And when I came into it, I was like, so does he live alone? Because Eddie's fucked off. So it was just like, how does he have money for food? Like it felt like a very interesting sort of approach.
Very maternal aspect. There's a very maternal take on it,
Well, I mean, you have this kid who's like, oh, you have a symbiote. It's not going to do you any good. Like, what's
right? How you going to pay rent?
Yeah, you do, and it was a sort of like I thought it was a very interesting way into a character, and I love Venom. I think it's a bunch of fun to write. But I will say that of all the things I've done, I think Carnage possibly the funnest thing of all, because
I can imagine.
Yeah, and you just have to. I don't even think I had to suspend any belief at that point. I was just like, okay, if you buy into this idea that you have a symbiote that is Carnage, and Cletus Cassidy, which is it's a glorious character, and I went like very far back into all of the old stuff and brought out a bunch of very interesting references that like 4 people got, and I'm very grateful for those 4 people. Nice. And just that entire book was just a joy. And I do, and it's not even the shock factor of things, even though I do enjoy. Like I wish I could be more violent and more horny. I don't know. Like there's a limit to the. You can be quite violent, but you can't be horny at all in American comic books. So you get into, which I was
in Marvel and DC, you can be horny and playing.
Okay, yeah, sure. But like I wrote, did Warhammer Sisters of Battle. Yeah, and I'm not sure how much you know about like 40K, but there is a sort of the main villain that we use, or like the main god, is Slanesh, who is like the god of fornication and fucking and whatever, and that was that's obviously in the outline, and when we got to the pages, they were like, oh, you can't do any of this stuff. I had a bunch of like people been frozen in the act of things, and they were used as furniture and whatever. And they're like, but they're not fucking, right? I'm like, well, I don't know. Are they not? And they're like, no, they're not. Okay, so they're just like conveniently warped together. It's a puppy pile, non-sexual naked puppy pile. That's what it was. And then they froze. I don't know.
I mean, we reviewed Spectators on this show, and I don't think you can get more explicit than that book.
Well, I mean, Brian has a certain. I think it's a fun thing, and I'm happy Brian could do it. But I also know that
the thing about that book that there are references in that book that I went and talked to him about. They're like, you mentioned Enemy Mine. Oh my gosh, you know, and
the fun thing about Brian, because we talk about this a lot. I'm not gonna talk out of school, is that what you say? But I find it interesting that you have, like, back in his earlier career, when he wasn't like Brian K. Vaughan, but he still really wanted to do what he wanted to do, right? And you would have people saying no to projects where I think like, oh, they probably regret it a bit now, maybe possibly.
Sure.
And I also know that there are, like, you can find copies of Saga, like PDFs of Saga, where they've taken out all the naughty bits, which I find sort of astonishing, because, like, when I was 13, that was sort of the main point of comics, right? Like, you can get some really naughty bits without, and that is sort of, especially when you're entrenched in sort of the European comic sense, it was mainly very horny men who.
Listen, when I was 13, I was looking for European comics.
Yeah, as you should. Yes, they're fun.
Yes.
I bought someone's comic collection a couple of years ago, because they had there were a bunch of war stories that I really wanted. I couldn't find it anywhere else. They had, like, on top in the picture, on the marketplace pictures. I bought the entire thing, and then it turned out, like, in the other boxes, mostly just Finnish porn.
Nice.
Just coming, and I don't know what's going on there. I don't think they know what's going on there. Sure. So at some point I had they're just like, they're called people fucking for a while, and then, you know, there's a flower, and that's the world. Like, I don't know. It's just like, it couldn't be it's paper thin, this logic, but we're enjoying it, you know.
Sure. Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
I'm sorry, I tend to do this.
That's totally fine. No, we were talking about symbiotes, right? So
we were.
So now you're coming back to it and doing this thing, and I think this. I'm looking forward to it. I definitely will let you know what I think about this book.
Well, I think it's very. I enjoyed it, and the thing is, like, all of the. I think the silliest thing I find about symbiotes is when you have a continuity that's so sort of drawn out. And like, when I took over Carnage, he was so powerful that he was sort of, the whole premise of the book was Carnage trying to figure out if he was a god or not, and if he was a god, what kind of god would he be. And I don't necessarily think a character that is sort of all powerful is all that interesting. And I think, like, the only way to do that is to focus on all of the, you know, the sort of blind spots that the character has. I don't know. So, but the fun thing about doing this is that you can have, like, a newborn symbiote, so you don't have decades of continuity that you have to take into account, and you can just sort of be like, okay, so if you have a new symbiote that sort of is awakening in the world for the first time and is now a symbiote that is bonded to a person instead of just being a part of the hive, like, what will they take from a character like Thor? Like, what will a symbiote, like, if the black suit, when they bonded to Spider-Man, they got a bunch of different things that you can sort of see still being echoed in Venom today, right? Like, both in how it looks and how it moves and everything. It's very Spider-Man coded. So what happens when you take a symbiote and then you bond it to Thor? He's never been Spider-Man coded. Yeah. It's just
I think that's brilliant.
Delightfully fun challenge.
Sure. I'm looking forward to it. Do you have a defined process on your script writing? Do you have I do this, then I do that, or are you a little bit more flexible?
I think it's I don't know. I should have, right? I have a.
I don't know. That's not a should. People have their own. I'm just asking, how do you do it?
Well, the thing is, sometimes, like I'm doing. I just wrote an outline for the Bad Seeds event that we're doing over at DC.
Sure.
Yeah. And I have 2 issues, and I want to push so much nonsense into the 2 issues. I wrote a very detailed outline, and I can just sit down and write that thing, which is a delightful place to be. So what I'm sort of struggling with is when I have if I have I know where I want to go, and I have a sort of slight roadmap, and then I feel like there should be something more interesting, like we should take a detour somewhere, or we should, I have there are some tiny little pieces of truth or something that I feel needs to be in there for it to be like a complete story. So one thing is sort of what's going to happen, but the other thing is just how does it reflect truth and reality in a way that's is tingly to me. So sometimes that what I'll do is I'll write down all the little tingly bits, and sometimes it's just it's one sentence here and there. There's one little thing that redefines something, or sort of puts another light onto an event that's happening in the book. So I'll have a bunch of notes with little tingly bits, and then I try to make sure that they all work together. And this is a process that I'm not going to say I hate it, because it's sort of sometimes it's really, really fun. But if it's not there, if it's just a comic of people going I get very frustrated, and I will try to sort of search for some sort of meaning to make sure that I need to be excited about it, and that part can be a little disorganized. So it's sort of ideally I would just sit down and write the thing. But what usually happens is I'll write the thing, I will have a panic attack, I will hate myself for a few days, and then I'll go back to writing, and I will push through, and then when everything is where it's supposed to be, that's when when every panel is sort of accounted for, that's when I go through and sort of write it properly. But getting there until that last bit, that's disorganized chaos. And then I love the last part of writing, and I'm, sometimes very frustrated about the first part. Sometimes you have scripts where you just sort of everything is just great. It's just, it happens from time to time. Happened a lot with Carnage, just because it's such a delightful nonsense. Hard to do when you needed to punch emotionally.
It sounds like it's that whole concept of, the middle is the tough part, which a lot of people will say that writing a comic, that the middle is the hard part. You know where you want to go, and you know where you want to start, and how do you get there? Do you find that's the case?
Well, I think we're sort of suffering a bit from the formula that we're so used to too.
Sure.
And one of the things I really enjoy about comics is you have to split things up into a bunch of different pieces, because there needs to be something satisfying at the end of every issue somehow, right? Sure. And there's an art to a good cliffhanger, and there's nothing better than getting that sort of wording just right, when oh, you got it. But personally, I find the endings less interesting than people claim. I hear a lot of writers being like, "Oh, you need to know where you're going," which I get as a sort of, for a character arc, I get it. But when I think about my favorite both comics and really movies, I very rarely think about oh, that was a good ending. Right, I sometimes I forget how it ended in the first. I remember the little bits and pieces in between where I think oh, that fucking changed my life. That little piece of truth. There's my favorite example of this is in Preacher, and I don't remember each issue. It's when like Cassidy is fucking around with the other vampires, and they've done something in the vampire club, whatever the fuck it is, I don't remember, but they're mooning, like they're pulling their pants down and mooning, and then they run away, and then the dude asks Cassidy, like, why are we running? And then he says, because it's more fun like that. And I think that's such a, I steal that all the time. I use it all over the place, because I think it's one of those things where, yeah, it's a very specific sort of a feeling that everyone knows, but we don't have a word for it. We just know that it's more fun like that, to be two people running away after having mooned someone. Like, it's just it. So I try to, as far as I can, add in the little sort of niblets of things that I feel people are going to be like, yeah, I know that feeling. I know that thing. And I hope that they will sort of recognize it, enjoy it as much as I do.
That's good. I think that's fantastic. That's a great process. I think it makes sense. What's been one of the most surprising things that you've encountered because of writing comics, like in your life?
In my life? I don't know. The most surprising, does it? I mean, it's a good question.
There's amazing things that there are amazing things that you've encountered, right? Like the travel that you do, and all of the, it's got to be, you got to at one point just pinch yourself, like, am I living this life? I think it's fantastic, and
it is a really absurd thing. Yeah, but the fun thing is, like, most of my time I spend inside my house or studio, or in the cabin in the forest, and it can be like I've just it's like it's the beginning of March, which means that I have barely left the house since October. I don't know, and I do mean like a barely. Like, I have a treadmill that I'll walk on and sometimes I'll be like, do I need to? I don't need to leave the house ever. But I just came back from the States. We had a DC summit in LA with all of the writers and some of the artists, and it was, one of the best, most sort of invigorating, inspiring experiences of my life. Like, it was fantastic. And then it's odd to sort of come back to the very quiet, very sort of, and I like that. I like the contrast of it. It is a sort of, this is, if I were to think about what I would have wanted for my life 15 years ago, this would be it. That's
awesome. That's perfect.
So I do like, I find it's but it's also like it's a fun thing. Like, I wrote Punisher for a while, and I had a dude come up, and he had like full Punisher cosplay, and he began the conversation by going, "What I like about you, Torunn, is that you're not woke." And I was just like, you read the comic? Like, it was just as a weird way to begin the conversation in the first place. But we were not subtle in that comic. No. Like, we went full, like we were killing podcasters. I don't
think you're subtle. I don't think you're no.
Well, yeah. No, I don't think so either. But I do. What I find that there is a sort of beautiful thing when you see how much people will read into comics. They will put so much of themselves into a story, and that's why we do it, right? Because, like, it doesn't really matter. I try not to think about it. I'm trying not to preach, because what do I have to say? But there is a sort of beautiful thing when you can get a connection with someone based of a story, and then I try to have great respect for the fact that it doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as it does for me when I'm writing it, and that has been surprising, but also delightful in a way, to sort of meet that, like, we can meet over a story even if we are very far apart when it comes to a lot of things and a lot of ideas, and I like that. I think we need more of that these days.
I think so. You mentioned you were just here, and I saw some pictures from the summit, and I was hoping that you had been there. I figured you had mentioned that you were going to be traveling before we got here. Do you feel superior to your compatriots because you get almost a whole day's worth of work before they even get up?
I mean, what I like is that, just knowing that. But I also know, and I also, like, Ariana, my Catwoman editor, she told me that she has
Love
Like she
Ariana.
has she's the fucking best, right?
Yes.
It's as I said, I cannot say enough good things about the DC editorial. They're just fantastic people. But Ariana told me that she has like my little time zone. So she has a bunch of like, and one of them is Norway. And it's such an oddly touching thing. I was so touched by it. I just love the idea of her having that. Anyway, but I do have an LA clock somewhere ticking away, and I sometimes I'll be like, okay, let's hope they have a very heavy breakfast today. Maybe they have some meetings, because it is a sort of I do enjoy the extra hours in the morning to be able to, because sometimes when you're writing something, you will feel like the fucking you're brilliant, and it turns out you were just really pretentious and disgusting the next day.
Right.
So sometimes you have to rewrite all of the things that you did because it turned out you were a pretentious cunt and not a god.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I had the similar conversation with Willow Wilson, because when she started, she was writing and she was in Egypt when she started writing comics, and so she was again that far away. And so I was interested. You had a similar experience.
Oh yeah, it's the privilege of something. We do have a lot of privilege, but I will say we also have a lot of because we have a bunch of time off in Norway. We expect like a good week and a half at Easter. We have 6 weeks of summer vacation. We stop working, I would say, the 15th of December, and then it's like nothing happens in Norway the rest of December. So sometimes I'll be like, shouldn't you be
on vacation?
Some time off, Americans? Like, shouldn't you?
We
don't you like Jesus? Because we're sort of relatively, we don't really care about him over here, but we will celebrate Easter.
Listen, if there's a holiday to be celebrated, you will take advantage.
Of course.
Exactly.
We haven't seen the sun in half a year. We're gonna look up at the sun, and if we have to pray, we'll do anything. But I find it sort of fascinating how I've never been more aware of how much Americans work after I started working sort of with America, and just seeing like, geez, that you run your guys hard. I don't know.
Listen, this is not my job. This is I just do. Yep. I do extra.
Yep, that seemed to be. And I do find it I find that it's sort of delightful too when you have people are like, they work so hard and yet they're still able to do the things that they're really passionate about. And I sometimes I'm like, oh, it would be so interesting to see what would happen if those people who, they write every morning and every night, like what would happen if they were just allowed to write all the time. I would love to see that from time to time.
I would love to see that.
Yes.
We're getting towards the end, so I want to know: is there something that exists that you have not yet had a chance to write that you really want to write, that you want to put out there?
Well, I have a creator-owned book now that It was what I always have a bunch of them. Sort of, I have a bunch of ideas and a bunch of different things and a bunch of projects in the works, but I had one idea that it feels pressing in a way that the others don't. It feels like a sort of, this needs to happen right now. So I'm doing that. And it's very pleasing.
What can you tell us about that?
I'm not sure if that.
You don't have to tell us anything about where it is. Just.
Well, it's not. It's just it feels like a power of the people sort of a thing. It feels like an important. I hate when people are like, "Oh, it's an important book right now." Well,
yeah, no, I understand.
It's not gonna be like, but it feels like.
It.
I think back to like the very beginning when I go on about like how this feels like a profound and meaningful thing to do. I think sometimes like that's a trick, right? Because it's not necessarily like not everything you write is going to turn out to be something. It's just going to be it's going to be a thing, but it feels very good to do something very sort of you have expressed something, and hopefully people will have understood what you tried to say. And as a sort of a person of this world in 2026, it feels very good to be able to, from time to time, express something, because it's a weird time to be alive. And I think it's so this thing that I'm doing now, it feels sort of, it feels like if I can do this and do it right, I can look back at these years and be like, yeah, that was time well spent, and I like that.
That's awesome. I am intrigued and excited, so I can't wait to see what that is.
But you hear it.
I want to talk about this for a second. This is beautiful.
Thank you.
For the people who are watching, or people who are listening, this is Battle Action, 50 Years of Battle, Volume 3, Issue 8. And this is a cover that's painted by Torunn. And this is there's a upcoming issue of an Ahoy book that you have a cover for as well, right?
Yeah, the Babs book. I love Babs. If you're not reading it, you should be, because
I love Babs so much.
Yeah,
it is pure Garth. Everything. If you ever have met him, it's everything he wants to be.
Yeah, and I feel like it's because he's been making so much fun of me and Brian about our love for sort of fantasy. And then he starts writing in himself, and he loves it. You can just tell that he fucking loves it, and he's having so much fun, even if he is, making fun of all the horny elves and everything. But yeah, I did the thing about the paintings. I do paint. I'm a portrait painter, like, mainly, and it's a very sort of time-consuming thing to do. But I find if I can paint things that means a lot to me, it's absolutely worth it. And this was a very sort of special thing. Like, Garth asked me if he was the one who asked me if I wanted to write Nina Petrova in the first place, which was it's a very specific sort of dream come true for me, just because it's one of those, I'm not sure how well known it is in the States. But to me, it was one of the things that I found in my local thrift store. I would find like an issue here, an issue there of Johnny Red. And there would be this character called Nina Petrova. And she would just, she would hold her own in a way that, that wasn't usual back in those days at all. And we were talking about, strong female characters. That's not necessarily what she's a strong character, but she's also, she was just allowed to do her job. And I've spoken about this before, where it's just there's a panel in one of the old issues where she and Johnny Red, they're carrying a huge box between them. She literally gets to pull her weight, Sure. And it's a rare thing to see we do tend to sort of either over idolize or sort of infantilize female characters. So when you just have someone, they're just they're useful, everyone just sees their value beyond the fact that they're a woman. It's just a spectacular thing. And so I always loved this character. And then when Garth started writing her as a separate strip, and then he gave it to me, that was one of those, pinch me dream comes true for the 13-year-old Torunn. So it's fun. And then he asked me if I wanted to paint her, and I had a meltdown, because it's an interesting thing I needed her to look like Ukrainian. And I spent a lot of time looking at Ukrainian women to figure out sort of how I don't know.
This is not off model. This is your. You
didn't
have a particular model for this.
No, I had a 9 million reference photos, and sure. I had a very bad sort of Photoshop sketch that I tried to use as a thing. But it's always interesting when you're trying to. I had the same thing with the Babs thing, because she is Jason Burroughs. He will always draw her with a smile. Whatever she does, she'll have a smile on her face. Smiling is a very hard thing to do in oil paint. Oil paint is a very sincere medium. You know what I mean? It just feels like it's a sort of heavy, sincere, nonsensical medium. So it often, if you have a smile, it looks like you're sort of making fun of people in a way. And I didn't want to do that. And I tried to sort of figure out who's Babs. I had another meltdown, but it was a fun thing to do that too. It takes a long time though. It's
I appreciate you, and I look forward to more of this. I hope you continue to do it.
I'm doing another one now for a new book of Garth's that I'm not sure if, I don't think it's announced yet.
Well, and don't say it. We don't want to get people in trouble.
No, but I will say that when people see what it is, they're going to be like, oh my God, Torunn, I can't believe you're fucking doing this. And if I can make it right, there will be a horse on the cover. So that's going to be something.
That's a lot.
I feel like it's sort of payback for making people draw horses. Like all those years I had people be like, it's just a flying horse.
Right.
And then 5 more in the background. What's the problem?
Yeah. And then, there's horses all over Sonia, right, too.
Yeah. All over it, all the time. But I did ask Walter, like, how much you hate drawing horses. He's like, horses are fine. It's cats. That's the problem.
That's interesting.
Cats. Yeah. So I had like a couple times I forgot it, and I put a cat in, and he would be like, yeah, here's your fucking cat.
That's brilliant. Oh, that's great. What is there anything that's coming that we'll be excited that we don't know yet? We know that you're continuing on with Catwoman through this Bad Seeds. There's obviously the Thor What If book. Is there other stuff you're working on that?
Well, right now I do have the Nightmare Before Christmas book out.
Oh yes, that's right.
I think
that's a whole different thing for you to take out. How's that been work for you?
Well, it's been interesting because I have a sort of very clear idea of what that should be, and it was interesting to work with. First of all, I think it's very much like an all ages book. Sure. So all of the best jokes were taken out because you're you, right? Yeah, that's I did.
I understand.
Yeah. So I sometimes feel like Disney, all they had to do was they were just like, Torunn, fuck's sake. They would not say fuck's sake.
They would not say for fuck's sake.
They would be. They were so appropriate, and I would sit there and be like, I feel so rude. That's what I feel like. But I think I do hope that sort of the light of it stayed. But it's been a very interesting process, and I think like Disney, and probably rightfully so, they're very protective of their IP in every way, and we didn't have as much of the leeway with creating new stuff like in Halloween Town.
Sure.
Every time I would sort of suggest like there's an apothecary in the background or something, that we like, we don't know if there's we can't do that, so just leave the background blank. And I would that there are some panels in there where I think like it would have been better if we could have had a discussion, and maybe we could have added a bit to the lore. But then again, it is a complicated thing to keep the lore sort of going, and because it's all ages, they did sort of snip off a few things where I think the fans of the movie would have loved a couple of the things that were cut. But it also like now the fans of the movie can give this to their very young children and it'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting fandom, right? It's an interesting concept how this movie it was subversive in itself. Like the movie it's not a kid's movie.
No, I wouldn't say so.
And it has such an interesting, because it is a millennial movie, right? I'm a little old for it, but it's so good. I'm excited that they put this into comics, and I'm glad that they chose you to do it. So
well, I was too. I would sort of, and I do hope that sort of the fandom, because one of the things that I was a very gothy girl, like, sure. And then I don't know, like I don't have black hair, but people seem to be like, oh yeah, she does. She's like a Satanist or something. Like it was a very interesting way to grow up. But I love the fact that you had this thing. And they didn't mock like the gothiness at all. It
Right.
didn't sort of take the piss out of anything. It was just sort of a delightful, and it didn't take it too seriously either. It was like a fine balance of something that could just be enjoyed and not necessarily be preachy in any way. And I like that.
I think that that's the thing I like about that movie is that it's just to be enjoyed. It's just
Yeah.
don't think too much about it. Don't get too
Yeah.
hung up on it. But it's fun, and I'm glad you're doing that. So yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So if you have young kids and you like the movie, do the thing. And every time you think like, oh, that's an oddly empty page, just assume that I said something really funny.
I will I will assume. Are you going to be at any shows that people would want to know about?
I'll be at Dutch Comic Con, and I know I'm doing Brussels Comic Con, and I'm doing a bunch of European shows. I'll happily go to America as long as I'm allowed into the country.
How was that?
I don't know.
You were just here, so was it okay? Did you have any issues?
I had some issues, but it's a fun thing. Like what I usually do, because they're very suspicious about women traveling alone. Like that's always a thing. Like why would you be here? Yeah, and it tends to always sort of come up, and it's so strange coming from Norway because I'm like, what? Like I don't.
I thought we loved he loves Norwegians.
Oh yeah, and I'm
the
pale version of the Norwegians, and they seem to be very fond of specifically those.
Yeah,
and it's but I
believe you were Norwegian because you have dark hair.
No, it was just like, so you're traveling alone. Where are your friends? I'm like, they're here. They're already here. I promise I have friends. They're like, oh, so is there like a boy? I'm like, no, it's no, I just friends. So what always happens, I've done this, I don't even know how many times, is that we get into that back and forth where I feel like I'm sort of, it feels like I'm being interrogated, and the comics thing always comes up because I'm always going to a con. I never travel for fun anymore. I always travel for some work, but it's mostly fun, let's face it. And then they'll be like, oh, so you write comic books? I'm like, yeah. And then they'll necessarily go, so have you ever written something that I read? And then I'll just go, oh, have you read The Punisher? And then it's like, welcome to America. Every time. I don't know. I'm not sure. Like,
I'm glad you're not woke.
Just Punisher. I don't know. It was very fun. Like I was talking to Garth about this, and he had ones. It was doing jury duty, and he didn't want to be on the jury, and he was hoping that the fact that he wrote The Punisher would make him be like they wouldn't want him, but they did. Want him. So he had to sit through some sort of trial because like, yeah.
It's odd. It's an odd thing. My son just had jury duty, and he's a lawyer. And I'm like, oh, you're a lawyer. You don't have to do like, no, he's a lawyer and he lives in Washington, D.C. and everybody's a lawyer. So you still have to do.
Well, that's an interesting thing. I wonder if it's more frustrating if you know about it. I know that like in Norway, we don't have the same process as you guys, but we do have like civilians, but I think they get a little sort of like a training thing before they go and do anything at trial. Mm-hmm. I think they do like, this is the law and these are the things you need to think about. And, you can't just...
I mean, there is that as well. Cause he was definitely, letting his jury members know that this is how you have to follow the law.
Yeah. You can't just follow your feelings. I don't know.
When we talk, I'll tell you the story later when we meet again. So...
yeah, I'm sort of fascinated by it because it's such a. It seems to be like Americans seems to mostly not want to do the jury duty, but at the same time, it's one of the things that are true. Like it's great about the justice system, right? Yeah. So it's an odd thing, and it sounds oddly interesting. But then you hear about people are being like, "Oh, it was 2 months of my life."
Well, that's the problem. See, we have to work.
Yeah.
And now you can't work and you don't get paid for that. And that's the whole problem.
Yeah. So we'll talk about this later. But I mean, I find it fascinating.
All right. I find you fascinating and I have loved this conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
It's just a joy as I knew it would be, Bob. It's always fun to meet you. As I kept forgetting that this is going out to other people. So.
Yeah, people will see it, and hopefully they'll enjoy it, and they can follow you on your social media. It's always fun there as well. And
it's mostly like mooses. I'll post some mooses.
Moose, mice. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think
there's some mice too.
It's just moose.
I have a cabin in the forest, and there are a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's the dream, right? You get like you're in a yeah." And then I had like one drunken meltdown once on the stories on Instagram or something, where I showed like there was a mouse. I couldn't kill the fucking mouse, and I tried to sort of drunkenly build a mouse trap based on sort of redneck YouTube something, and that sort of killed a lot of the enthusiasm that people have about staying in the forest, because they're like, oh, there are mice. I'm like, yeah, there are mice. It's the forest.
We're gonna let this go, and I'm gonna play our outro, and we will hope everybody enjoys this, and make sure you read more comics because they're good for you. And thanks, Torunn, for being here.
This was lovely.
This has been a production of the Pop Culture Squad Network. PopCultureSquad.com. How do you nerd?